Mexico City is a metropolis defined by staggering scale. With over 22 million residents, it's a restless, sprawling engine of glass and concrete, constantly reaching upward to accommodate its own growth. Yet tucked away in the southern expanse lies a fiercely protected pocket of resistance. It is a neighborhood of low-slung colonial rooftops, quiet courtyards, and cobblestone streets that actively refuses to build upward. Despite its distinct character, global attention on this massive, complex neighborhood is almost entirely consumed by a single address. Here at the cobalt blue exterior of Casa Azul, the former home of Frida Kahlo, visitors wait in lines for hours just to catch a glimpse of the artist's preserved life. A museum checklist misses the reality of the 500-year-old living sanctuary surrounding those famous blue walls. The artists whose legacies draw millions to these quiet streets lived their lives in the open. They argued politics in local cantinas, bought produce in the neighborhood markets, and found inspiration under jacaranda trees. To understand the neighborhood, you have to step out of the ticket queue and walk the same paths its most iconic residents did. Long before Spanish galleons reached the Americas, this area was a thriving settlement. The indigenous Nahuatl speakers named it Coyoacan, the place of those who have coyotes. When European colonizers arrived in the early 16th century, they didn't wipe the map clean. They systematically built their new empire directly on top of the existing indigenous foundations. Look at the interior of the Parroquia San Juan Bautista. Beneath these staggering gilded altars and complex frescoes lie the literal ruins of a Calmecac, an elite school built for the sons of Aztec nobility. Right outside the heavy doors of that church sit Jardín Hidalgo and Jardín Centenario. These twin plazas breathe life into the community, hosting morning joggers, bustling weekend markets, and impromptu street performances. These open spaces act as the social infrastructure of the neighborhood. The physical layout of a colonial-era village continues to dictate how a modern community gathers, talks, and survives together. By the 20th century, the quiet cobblestones and thick colonial walls offered something highly sought after by the world's radical thinkers: a safe haven. After fleeing the Soviet Union, the Marxist revolutionary Leon Trotsky found his final refuge right here in Coyoacan. But his violent rivalry with Joseph Stalin followed him across the Atlantic. Following a brutal assassination attempt involving machine guns in his own courtyard, Trotsky was forced to erect high defensive walls and brick watchtowers, military fortifications that still cast shadows over the residential streets. Intrigue. The tension was compounded by a complex web of relationships. As you can see in the looming figure of Diego Rivera, the muralist, along with Frida Kahlo and Trotsky, were locked in a cycle of ideological debates, romantic affairs, and bitter falling outs, all playing out in the local cafes and hidden courtyards. You don't have to read a plaque to feel that history. It is sustained by the daily routines of the people who still call these blocks home. Inside the Mercado de Coyoacan, the rhythm remains unchanged. Families haggle for the freshest chiles, indigenous artisans display hand-woven textiles, and vendors serve hot, fresh tamales. And the local coffee culture is fiercely independent. Spots like the 70-year-old Café El Jarocho or the artisanal roaster Kutli bypass massive corporate supply chains, sourcing their beans directly from small, fair trade farmers in states like Veracruz and Oaxaca. Buying a warm churro, sipping locally roasted coffee, and sitting on a weathered bench in the plaza is how you actually participate in the neighborhood's ongoing story. Looking at this map, Coyoacan's borders represent a rigid legal shield. Strict federal heritage laws outlaw modern development within the historic zone. Because new construction is banned, colonial structures carry a premium for scarcity. This invisible ceiling forces the surrounding metropolis to build around it. Notice the monumental stone mosaics covering the UNM Central Library. Located right on the edge of the borough, these institutions repurpose their historical footprint to actively foster public knowledge and modern education. Coyoacan operates entirely on its own terms. It is a fiercely protected cultural legacy that still breathes. Go ahead and see where the famous artists lived, but when you are done, walk into the market, order a coffee, and join the authentic rhythm of the local community. It is the ultimate testament to a neighborhood that honors 5 centuries of history by unapologetically living in the present.